on 18 February. We'll be having our third lecture on philosophical hermeneutics and the idea of good by Dr. Srikumar from IIT Chennai. For this inaugural session, we have with us the esteemed presence of our beloved principal, Dr. Arvind Krishnan sir, and Dr. Sushin Dubey, professor, as well as the former member secretary of ICPR. And first of all, I would like to welcome our beloved principal, Dr. Arvind Krishnan sir, who has joined us to deliver the presidential address. So, the department wholeheartedly welcome you to this session.
Thank you very much. Is it audible to me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Now, let me introduce our chief guest, who, despite his hectic schedule, have consented to join us. The chief guest of the day is Dr. Sushin Dubey, Professor, Department of Philosophy, Navanaranta Mahavihara, Deemed to be University under Ministry of Culture, Government of India. Apart from being a renowned academician as well as an active member of ICPR in various capacities, he has empty number of articles, publications, and presentations to his credit. Above all, his passion and dedication towards philosophy is commendable. He has organized hundreds of research programs, seminars, and workshops in philosophy and allied areas in his capacity as a program officer of ICPR. We wholeheartedly welcome him to this virtual platform of the Department of Philosophy, Government College for Women, Thiruvananthapuram. Heartily welcome you, sir. Today, we also have with us our dear teachers as well as our dear students who always join us in all our endeavors. We extend our warm welcome to one and all. Once again, we welcome each one of you who have joined us today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I proudly invite our beloved principal, Dr. Arvind Krishnan K, for delivering the presidential address. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. A very warm good morning to you one and all who are selectively participating in this platform on account of ICPR webinar organized by the Department of Philosophy, Government College for Women, Thiruvananthapuram. It's my proud privilege to be here in nexus with the inauguration of ICPR periodic lecture series sponsored by the Indian Council for Philosophical Research, New Delhi, organized by the Department of Philosophy, Government College for Women, Thiruvananthapuram. The department has enough pace and urge to initiate such events in every sphere because an impeccable record has been taken over by the department right from the inception to the college. Not only this college, it is also being affiliated to the University of Kerala. I think all of you know what is the current scenario because this, as far as the regular time is concerned, this is the right time to conduct so many webinars and so many series of lectures and the seminars and workshops. But it is sorry to say that we are using this Google platform to share our ideas or to be spent more speculative thoughts from the philosophical approach will be conveyed through the platform only. So the right person who be here to inaugurate this session, and also we are lucky to have to conduct this seminar or to be present a paper on this day on the event of the reflections on Vivekananda's insight on Indian educational system. So the basically speaking, Indian Constitution provides for giving, it's a dire need of education for primary, secondary and other levels as far as a citizen is concerned. But it is very honored to be said that the insight of education that has been taken over by the spirit, the wisdom of Vivekananda, were likely to be discussed on today. From among the consumers, like the students of PG as well as the research scholars, how far he fetches to extend his views by emanating the reminiscences of educationist as well as his philosophical approach on the topic of education. It is very lucky to say that we never leave a true relation for a few faults. But nobody is perfect. Nobody is correct. At the end, affection is always greater than perfection. Make a mind which never minds. Make a heart rich, never hurts. But a touch which never pains. Make a relation which never ends. The biggest common problem is that we do not listen to understand, but we listen to reply. And why we are using this platform? Because it is, I already mentioned to you that it is very sorry to mention that we are using this electronic platform instead of physical perseverance due to the corona. So clean your hands off from gathering, raise your immunity, only sick to wear mask, not to handshake, and avoid rumors. I think the first letters will be taken together for mean corona. C, clean your hands. O, off from gathering. R, raise your immunity. O, only sick to wear mask. N, no to handshake. And A, avoid rumors. Not I am taking much time to inaugurate or to become presidential address, because our chief guest is always ready to share with you from the philosophical approach. But towards the end of this this program, I directed the students as well as the research scholars to explore the, not only explore, but to exploit the field of junk knowledge that has been shared by today's resource person. Let's pray for each other to have a day filled with good health, happiness, safety, peace, and love. Thank you one and all who gathered here, and this is the right time to say goodbye, and wishes to you all to be here. Nearly 91 participants have gathered. I take this opportunity to extend my hearty welcome to all those who has taken much pain to join with this program once again. Thank you very much to the organizers for being a part of your webinar series. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The time is now set for the inaugural speech by Dr. Sushil Dubey, Professor, Department of Philosophy, now Nalanda Mahavihar, Dean to be University under Ministry of Culture, Government of India. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, and it is a great honor, and my humble namaskar to all of who are here. Very respectable principal of the college, Dr. Arvind Krishnan K. Ji, and the program being organized by the Government College for Women, Thiruvananthapuram, Department of Philosophy, under the ICPR periodic lecture. And the program which is today to be organized, and we are going to listen and shall be listening also on very interesting and illuminating and most desired topics in the philosophy. And of course, the invitees also are very much they are renowned in their field, particularly Dr. Sangeeta Menanji, Dr. Sri Kumar ji, and Dr. Roshida, all together. And along with this, we have a very dynamic and all-time energetic and academic departmental head, Dr. Nazanin, who has really come forward to organize and taken such a good topic, along with all the students. As I have heard, a large number of students, in fact, in the college, and philosophy, a subject, a stream, an area which has invited and which has been since the history of education. If we go back, then this is what which has been in the rolling wheel of the civilization, which illuminated and have come forward, and other subjects got from the time to time got separated from the philosophy and established as a full-fledged subjects. Kautilya in Arthashastra has told philosophy as the Anvikshiki, which is the Pradeepta Sarvavidyana, means all other sciences or Vidya or learnings got illuminated, because it keeps on reflecting, and this reflections, which is not only intellectual, but the reflection for the self also, which is this bearer of all kind of knowledge. Although in this program, which together perhaps the lecture we are going to listen on the Vivekananda ji, who himself has told education is the manifestation of the perfection already in man, and educate and raise the masses, and thus alone a nation is possible. The Vivekananda, we shall definitely be hearing more on the very learned speaker on this program. What is more to be here, because we all are in field of education, and this education by which character is formed. This is what Vivekananda ji is telling. The intellectual is expanded, and by which one can stand on one's own feet. And definitely this education and philosophy of education, and other topics that we are going to have in this program on basics of philosophy, knowledge, self, and life purpose. Very interesting. And philosophical hermeneutics and the ideas of good. We are all striving for good, that the Plato says. And this is what has Aristotle says, and this all Western philosophy, which sometimes told to be again the reflections or repetence of what already revealed in behind this good, and whole ethics or morality is on it. And we also here in the talking of, or in this in the literature of Vivekananda also, that all this good, the knowledge of good or the realization of this good, which is the basic characteristic of the self or humanity. So in this program, I feel my privilege to be here, and under this periodic lecture scheme, which is the very popular and large scheme of Indian Council of Philosophical Research, to reach and popularize the philosophy, not for the sake of popularization, but for really coming forward to get the benefit of the philosophy, philosophizing the minds. And as what is the education that we are going to concern here is to inculcate or sanskar of self-knowledge, swadhyaya. And this is what we are concerned here in Corona, that our very respectable principal Sahab, Dr. Arvind Sahab, has told about that we are here in the this Google Meet platform, and this all COVID-19's observation towards the health, and this is what swasthya swayam mein avasthit. So all reflections, the knowledge of self, the knowledge of reading our own selves, the power of doing so, the training of being so, this is what is there in the philosophy. And I warmly welcome all of who are here with this online platform or shall be viewing this program either in the form of YouTube later on the Facebook. They must come forward and they must be given the basics as well as the inherent good of the philosophy for the betterment of not only the self but the humanity at large. And that is what we could be the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or the sattvic tendency, which is leading towards the spirituality, if at all we need to admit in the domain of philosophy, but ultimately towards the good and good of all. With this words, I definitely once again thanks to all who are the coordinator, Dr. Sandhya CV, Dr. L. Vijay, Dr. Gaspar KJ, Dr. Srikumaran M, Dr. Ambali S, Dr. Mangalabi, along with organizing secretary, of course, Dr. Nazanin, and of course, the student coordinators, they must also be remembered. They are the energy, as the Swami Vivekananda has told, full of energy our youths are, and they need to be properly trained, properly guided, and they come forward towards the betterment or making of the nation. So student coordinator, Dr. Athira S and Hanan Leon, and all of them who are here in the philosophy department and from other disciplines, from other cities, from other universities and colleges. So thank you all for listening me and giving me the opportunity to share a few words with all of you. Thank you so much, and my humble namaskar to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Now it's time to introduce our resource person. I invite Dr. Sandhya CV, Assistant Professor, Department of Philosophy, Government College for Women, for the same. Welcome, ma'am.
Welcome. Good morning. I am Sandhya, Faculty Coordinator. Am I audible, Chitra?
Audible, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. We have 3 lectures in this ICPR lecture series. Our first resource person is Dr. Roshida Rodriguez, Assistant Professor and HOD in charge, DCT's Dembi College of Arts and Science, Miramar, Goa. She will speak on reflection on Vivekananda's insights on Indian educational system. She has 15 years of teaching experience and had her PhD from Goa University. It is on the topic Understanding Linguistic and Hermeneutical Foundations of Genetic Epistemology. She is a visiting faculty in Goa University as well as in Patriarchal Seminary, Rachol, Goa. Dr. Roshida is a resource person under Study India program for students of Nihon University, Japan at Goa University. Now about the topic, it is reflection on Vivekananda's insights on Indian education system. Vivekananda is internationally acclaimed Indian philosopher. Most of the philosophers like Tagore, Vivekananda, Gandhiji have much importance. They give much importance to education and education system because education molds young minds of a country. In ancient India, we have Nalanda and Takshashila universities. From ancient time onwards, so much significance was given to education and education system. So now let us hear from Dr. Roshida. Now I welcome Dr. Roshida Rodriguez to deliver her lecture, Reflection on Vivekananda's Insights on Indian Education System. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to the most awaited session of the day. I invite Dr. Roshida Rodriguez, Assistant Professor and HOD, DCTS, Dembe College of Arts and Science, Miramar, Goa, to reflect her thoughts on Vivekananda's insight on Indian education system. I heartily welcome you, ma'am.
Am I audible to all of you? A very good morning to respected principal, my colleagues, and my dear students. I am Dr. Roshida, from all the way from Goa. I hope my screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, Roshida, it's visible and very much audible too.
Okay, thank you so much, Nazmeen. Welcome, students, and today I shall be speaking on reflection on Swami Vivekananda's insights into Indian educational system. Let me introduce to you a few points about Swami Vivekananda as a philosopher of contemporary Indian times. Swami Vivekananda was not only a social reformer, but also an educator, a great Vedanta's patriot, prophet of India. Born in Calcutta in 1863, who sought to modernize the nation of its social and cultural harmony. The child was named as Narendranath. Ramakrishna, the teacher of Swami Vivekananda, called him by this name. His mother, Bhuvaneshwari Devi, was a very intelligent and religious lady and would recite Ramayana and Mahabharata and performed her household work with a calm mind. From this we see to it that M.K. Gandhi and Vivekananda owed some of his religiosity to the influence of their mothers. His education was given through Bengali and English. His understanding was deep and memory sharp. He could follow a writer by only reading some of the lines written by him. He could understand the subject of a book by merely reading some portions of it. Narendranath was also influenced by Brahmo Samaj and became a member of it. As an individual, he never agreed to admit a thing without understanding it. He vehemently was against superstitions. He was a staunch supporter of social reform. He had a keen desire to participate in the progress of his country. Narendranath received his initiation in Vedanta from Ramakrishna. As students of philosophy, we all should know him as a follower of Vedanta system. Ramakrishna had extraordinary yogic powers. In 1885, he gave Narendranath the experience of attributeless samadhi by mere touch and ordered him that his first duty is to fulfill the mission of Ramakrishna. Narendranath was the leader of the Association of the Young Followers of Ramakrishna. This association was founded with the purpose of spirituality and welfare of humanity. As a leader of this association, called Ramakrishna Mission, Narendranath propagated the views of Ramakrishna everywhere. Belur near Howrah was made the head office of Ramakrishna Mission and the center of its activities. Narendranath was now known as Vivekananda. He extensively toured the country and tried to understand and solve its problems. The Neo Vedanta philosophy. Contemporary Indian philosophers presented philosophies which were based on the metaphysical background of Neo Vedanta. First, Neo Vedanta and Neo next. It is Vedanta as far as unity in diversity. According to Vedanta, the ultimate reality is Brahman, the absolute, the all-embracing spiritual reality, the Satchitanand. This Brahman is everywhere, and all human beings and nationalities are its different manifestation. This multiplicity has its essential unity in Brahman. The ancient Vedanta has not only admitted the reality of this world, Therefore, Shankara's interpretation of the world as Maya has been most popular in this country. From this point of view of social philosophy, this was unfortunate, though ironically, Shankara was not only the greatest philosopher that India has produced, but almost the greatest social reformer of his time. His shadow extended throughout centuries and even up to our contemporary times. The new Vedanta of Vivekananda itself could not absolutely free from the shadow of Advait Vedanta of Shankaracharya. In spite of this eloquent urgings of two Indian masses to rise and awake and to improve their physical conditions, Vivekananda did not challenge the Mayavad of Advaita, but rather supported it in many of his lectures. Tagore and Gandhi, on the other hand, were not much influenced by Mayavad, probably due to the reason that while Vivekananda was first and the last philosopher, and as a sannyasin, neither Tagore nor Gandhi were either philosophers or sannyasins, but were social and political thinkers and leaders. It was only Sri Aurobindo who challenged the Mayavad of Advaita Vedanta, showed its defect, and presented an alternative theory of the world in the form of his theory of Leela. But in spite of their basis in Vedanta philosophy, none of contemporary philosophers, including Vivekananda, Tagore, and Gandhi, preached about the illusionary nature of the world. They, on the other hand, emphasized that multiplicity is as much real as the unity, since the essence of Indian culture is unity in diversity. It was due to the influence of this metaphysical principle of unity in diversity that all these thinkers considered individual liberty and variety as contributing to the richness of national solidarity and unity. Again, it was on the basis of this metaphysical principle that they advocated the principle of unity in diversity in the international field. All of them were internationalist and cosmopolitans, but they considered the maintenance of the individuality of each nation necessary for the richness of humanity. Each nation, according to them, has to make a significant contribution to human fraternity through its unique characteristics. Therefore, for the good of the humanity on this planet, we need not abolish the individualities of the nation. We should rather encourage them. The line of thought has also encouraged by ancient Vedanta emphasis on Swadharma. According to Swadharma, the aim and objectives of everything is to evolve and grow according to its own inner principles. Not only in the kingdom of living beings, but even in nature, everything has to follow and ought to follow its nature. Swami Vivekananda considered Swadharma as the key to the understanding of human duties in national and international fields. Be thyself and know thyself are the highest philosophical principle known in East or West. In order to be thyself, you will have to first know thyself. Swami Vivekananda and other contemporary thinkers carried out the most important function of letting the Indian masses know themselves. They reminded them of their great past. They condemned their present oppressed condition, and they encouraged them to come out of it and to achieve the ancient glory. They were, however, not revivalist, since they did not ask the masses to return to the old, but wanted to modify the ancient thinking according to new circumstances. It was due to this emphasis on change and new adjustments that we have called the metaphysical background of contemporary Indian social philosophy not Vedanta but Neo Vedanta. This has also been called practical Vedanta by Vivekananda, which was new and different from the old Vedanta in its emphasis on science, rationalism, individual freedom, socialism, social reforms, emphasis on the reality of the world, not individual but cosmic salvation, and more emphasis on diversity rather than on unity in social and political fields. Vivekananda was the first Indian participant of Parliament of Religion in the year 1893, who not only succeeded in establishing Neo Vedanta, the central theology of Hinduism, but he also perpetuated his views both to India and outside India. He claims that Hinduism, Neo Vedanta, is the only true religion that acknowledges the religious diversity by preaching the message of tolerance and religious harmony in the 19th century. He was the first Indian participant of Parliament of Religion, who not only succeeded in establishing Neo Vedanta, the central theology of Hinduism, but he also perpetuated his views both to India and outside India. By the word Vedanta, Vivekananda means religion with a capital R, which, as he once said, is, I quote, one eternal religion, unquote. According to Swamiji, it is this one eternal religion that is, I quote, is applied to different planes of existences, is applied to the opinions of various minds and various races. There never was my religion or yours, my national religion or your national religion. There is only the one. One infinite religion existed all through eternity and will ever exist. And this religion is expressing itself in various countries in various ways. If education is viewed as the most powerful instrument of social change, his contribution to educational thought is of paramount importance. He defines education as the manifestation of perfect that is already there in man. Now, this point we can correlate with Shankaracharya. According to Swami Vivekananda, education is a continuous process. It should cover all aspects of life, such as physical, material, intellectual, emotional, moral, and spiritual. His views about modernization is that the masses should be educated before anything is done. His focus was to remove the four evils from India: the priestcraft, poverty, ignorance, and the tyranny of the wise. For him, political and social strength have their foundation on cultural strength. The true vision of philosophy of education in India is its cultural context. His educational thought has a great significance today, mainly because modern education has has lost much of its connection with values of human life. He thereby suggests that education should not be stuffing some facts into the brain, but must aim at reforming the human mind. True education to him is not just to have a career, but also the contribution to the nation. In the new Vedanta humanistic tradition of contemporary Indian thought, Vivekananda presented a philosophy of education for man-making. He revolted against the imposition of British system of education in India. He was a severe critic of the pattern of education introduced by the British in India, as he felt that the then current system of education did not conform to Indian culture. He was of the opinion that such a form of education only brings about an external change without any profound inner force. The chief objection raised by Swami Vivekananda on the British education system was that such an education system turned men into slaves capable of slavery. The prevailing education system was nothing better than an efficient machine for rapidly turning out clerks. It deprived people of their faith and belief. The English educated people believed that Gita was false and the Vedas were no more significant than rural folklore. He in turn compared this system of education to the person who wanted to turn his ass into a horse. The man was advised to thrash the ass in order to achieve the transformation and kill his ass in this purpose. He criticized the contemporary system of education from the humanistic point of view. He was a humanist and pleaded for education for man-making. This was missing from the British education system. Therefore, Swami Vivekananda remarked, I quote, "It is not a man-making education, it is merely and entirely a negative education. A negative education or any training that is based on negation is worse than death. The child is taken to school, and the first thing he learns is that his father is a fool. The second thing, that is, his grandfather is a lunatic. The third thing, that all his teachers are hypocrites. And fourth, that the sacred books are lies. By the time he is 16, he is a mass of negation, lifeless and boneless. And the result is that 50 years of such education has not produced one original man in the three presidencies. Each, every man of originality that has been produced has been educated elsewhere and not in this country, or they have done to the old universities once more to cleanse themselves of superstitions." Unquote. Swami Vivekananda noted some of the aims of education. First, self-development. Education, he says, should be for self-development. For him, education should be in line of positive teaching. It is not a mere book learning process. Education for him is a system which builds the character, strengthens the mind, and expands the intellect. It helps a person to stand on one's own feet. I quote, "What we want are Western science coupled with Vedanta, Brahmacharya as the guiding motto, and also Shraddha and faith in oneself." Unquote. These words represent the characteristic Indian definition of education. Education, to the Indian philosophical tradition, is the realization of the knowledge inherent in men. True knowledge does not come from outside. It is discovered with the individual in the self, which is the source of all knowledge. He says that all knowledge that the world has ever received comes from the mind. The infinite library of the universe is your mind. The external world is only the suggestion, the occasion which sets you to study your mind. The function of education is the uncovering of the knowledge hidden in our mind. Education is the process of self-development. A person's education is not judged by the number of books he has read, but by the thickness of the cover of ignorance on his mind. The thicker is the cover, the greater is the ignorance. As the light of knowledge draws, this cover of ignorance gradually shatters. The teacher's job, therefore, is to uncover knowledge by his or her guidance. His or her guidance makes the mind active, and the educand himself unveils the knowledge lying within him. The second aim of education is fulfillment of Swadharma. He supported the idea of Swadharma. Everyone has to grow like himself. No one has to copy others. True improvement is self-inspired. There should not be any external pressure on the student, as pressure only created destructive reaction leading to obstinacy and indiscipline. When the atmosphere of freedom, love, sympathy prevails, the child develops courage and self-reliance. The educator should not constantly dictate do's and don'ts, as it tends to blunt his intelligence and mental development. Is it okay?
Yeah, Roshida, please continue. Please continue.
Yeah. He should be taught to stand on his own to be himself. Education should be modified to suit the individual child. Each child or a student should be given opportunities to develop according to his own inner nature. Thirdly, freedom of growth. He felt there should be freedom in education, as it is the requirement for self-development. The child should be given freedom to grow according to his own nature. The teacher should not exert any kind of pressure on the child or the student. On the other hand, the student should be helped in solving his problems himself. The teacher should have an attitude of service and worship. Education aims at realization. It is a means of the establishment of a fraternity of mankind. Fourthly, character formation. The foundation for self-development is character. The aim of education is self-development, therefore, leads to the aim of education for character. He says, I quote here, the character of any man is but the aggregate of his tendencies, the sum total of the bent of his mind. As pleasure and pain passes before his soul, they leave upon it different pictures, and the result of this combined impression is what is called a man's character, unquote. The best way to develop a character is the personal example of a high character which is set by the teacher. So he feels the teacher has an important role in this system of education, in the character formation of a child. Character formation requires the following. He says hard work. Character formation, according to Swami Vivekananda, requires hard work. Struggle is the best teacher in character building. Moral and spiritual values. moral and spiritual values. Besides hard work, character formation requires traits such as purity, thirst for knowledge, perseverance, faith, humility, submission, and veneration. These and others. These qualities may be developed by the teacher's example and pupil's efforts. A true teacher is he who can immediately come down to the level of the student and transfer his soul to the student's soul and see through and understand through his mind. He speaks about the Gurukula system. Such a relationship between the teacher and the taught is possible only in the Gurukula system of education. Therefore, Swami Vivekananda favored the ancient Gurukula system of education. Now, in these Gurukulas, the pupils serve the teacher, which in his turn help the pupils everywhere to achieve knowledge. There was hardly any economic relationship between teacher and the taught, which is the cause of the present system of education, he feels. Formation of good habits. Character is intimately connected with habits. That's another way. Habits expresses character. Good habits make good character. He pointed out the value of habits not only in this life but in lives to come. A bad habit may be broken by developing the opposite good habit. Next, learning through mistakes. The child should be allowed to commit mistakes in the process of character formation. He will learn much by his mistakes. Errors are the stepping stones to our progress in character. This progress requires courage and strong will. And strong will is the sign of great character. Vivekananda asked the people to build up their character and manifest their real nature, which is effulgent, the resplendent, and the ever pure. Means of education. He stressed the following means of education. Firstly, love. The best means of education, according to Swami Vivekananda, is love. Education should be based upon love as it is the best inspiration in character building. The motive in imparting education should be love for the educand, for the man in him. The teacher's aim should be neither money making nor nor attainment of fame, but only bestowing human love. The spiritual force works through love. This love within the educator is the real source of his influence upon the educand. Secondly, help. The task of the educator is to help the educand in manifesting and expressing his abilities and capacities. Educator should help the individual to recognize his cultural heritage and use it in his struggle of life. The educator can guide the educand because he himself has the experience of trading on this path and knows how to face its difficulties. Vivekananda has not only presented high ideals of education but also developed a sound system by which these ideals may be achieved. Thirdly, guidance. Guidance of a skilled teacher is required to solve difficulties of the pupil. For this, the teacher should have sufficient knowledge of human psychology, as most of our problems are psychological in nature. The teacher should teach the educand to concern his attention. Only then can the problems be solved. The greater the attention, the more is the effort effective. Fourth, concentration. This is the key to true knowledge. Therefore, Swami Vivekananda has placed emphasis upon focusing of attention. The educand should be distinguished as per their abilities, and while teaching, the teacher should keep in mind the varying abilities of concentration in spontaneous and easy. For others, it is difficult and therefore requires long training. The teaching too must be organized in such a way that educator may be helpful to each educand separately. Lastly, discussion and contemplation. Besides concentration, the other means of education is discussion and contemplation. It is only through these that the educand may remove his difficulties. Discussion should be carried out in an informal atmosphere. Contemplation should be practiced in a calm and quiet atmosphere with the mindfulness. Without faith and reverence, to know true knowledge can be achieved. It is faith and reverence which are sound foundation for all character development and self-education. The faith and reverence depend not only upon the educand but also upon the high example presented by the teacher. The teacher occupies a high place in the educational process. He also speaks about medium of instruction, where he focuses three forms. Firstly, he gives utter or lots of importance to mother tongue. He laid emphasis on teaching through mother tongue. He was supported by all other contemporary Indian philosophers of education for supporting mother tongue and to convey knowledge to the students through mother tongue. Secondly, common language. Besides the mother tongue, there should be a common language which is necessary to keep the country united, which can be addition to the regional language. Thirdly, he focuses on Sanskrit. The teaching of Sanskrit forms an important part of the curriculum as envisaged by Swami Vivekananda. It is the source of all Indian languages and a repository of all inherited knowledge. Thus, it is necessary that an Indian should know Sanskrit. He appreciated the greatness of Sanskrit in eloquent words, and he would say that this language granted power, ability, and prestige to the nation, and that our awareness of our cultural heritage and past greatness depends very much upon our knowledge of this language. He felt Indian culture can be best understood with the help of this language. If the society has to develop and progress, it is necessary that men and women should know this language, which is the storehouse of ancient heritage besides the knowledge of the mother tongue. In his discussion or in his views about education, he also speaks the different types of education, and he also spoke about the methods used to impart these kinds of education. Firstly, physical education. He stressed on the importance of physical education in the curriculum. Self-realization or character building is impossible in the absence of physical education. One must know the secret of making the body strong through physical education. And for a complete education, it is necessary to develop both mind and body. He glorified power and opposed weakness in any form. Power was happiness, and weakness is never-ending burden. It is hence that he emphasized the importance of physical education, particularly for younger men and women. Secondly, moral and religious education. He says, I quote, religion is the innermost core of education. I do not mean my own or anyone else's opinion about religion. Religion, he says, is the rice, and everything else is like the curries. Taking only curries causes indigestion, and so is the case with taking rice alone. Unquote. Therefore, religious education is a vital part of a sound curriculum. This religious education is necessary in order to counter-effect the evil influence of modern materialism. It is only by synthesis of religion and science that man may reap the advantages of both. Religious education should be part of the curriculum and not the whole curriculum. Education should be secular. One must follow the plain lane plan laid down by the ancestors, that is, to bring all the ideals slowly down to the masses. I quote his words, raise them slowly up, raise them to equality, impart secular knowledge through religion. Unquote. Thirdly, education for weaker section of society. Swami Vivekananda respected human individuality everywhere and pleaded for freedom for everyone. Every soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest external and internal. I quote, do this either by work or worship or psychic center or philosophy by one or more or all of these and before. This is the whole of religion. Doctrine or dogmas, rituals or books, temples or forms are secondary details. Unquote. It was due to his devotion for the poor and the backward people that Swami Vivekananda wanted to make education an instrument for the uplift of the masses. Here we see similarity between Mahatma Gandhi and Swami Vivekananda, as both worked for the upliftment of the backward classes. Swami Vivekananda pleaded for universal education to see that the backward people may fall in the line with others. He said, I quote, a nation is advanced in proportion as education and intelligence is spread among the masses. The chief causes of India's ruin have been the monopolizing of the whole education among masses. Unquote. Education, he says, should be spread in every household in the country to factories, playgrounds, and agricultural fields. If the children do not come to school, the teacher should reach them. 2 or 3 educated men should team up, collect all the paraphernalia of education, and should go to the village to impart education to children. Thus, Vivekananda favored education for the different section of society, rich and poor, young and old, male and female. The fourth kind of education, he says, is education for women. He presented a comprehensive curricula for women so that they may develop high character, courage, and confidence. He presented the ideal of Sita and lamented the modern Indian women are imitating Western ideals, which has led to all-round degeneration. Like males, he advised females also to observe brahmacharya, which led to the solid foundation for any type of education. He considered women to be the incarnation of power and asked men to respect them in every way. He pointed out that unless Indian women secure a respectable place in the country, the nation can never march forward. The regeneration of Indian women, according to him, depends upon proper education. Women's education should be in the hands of women. Some of the observation. Upon analyzing the concepts, aims, and ideals of education, it is clear that Swami Vivekananda was a humanist in the true sense of the term. Man for him is the highest of all living beings, so much so that according to Swami Vivekananda, even the angels will have to come down again and again for salvation through human body. His ideals were supported by modern Western educationists. Education today is defined as a process of all-round development of the child. Such a development can take place only from within, while the external environment provides occasion for such development. The teacher has to provide the environment so that the child may become aware of the treasure of knowledge lying buried in his mind. The teacher's job is to see that there is no impediments in the child's path of self-development. The teacher is like a gardener who prepares grounds for the growth of his plants, protects them, and nourishes so that the plant may grow properly. Vivekananda presented a positive system of education. He says, I quote, education is the manifestation of the perfection already in men. I look upon religion as the innermost core of education, unquote. As I was preparing the lecture for y'all, I tried to look into some of the fundamental principles of the new education policy, and I was trying to correlate the fundamental principles of the new education policy with that of Swami Vivekananda's views on education. And I tried to jot down certain points where I could feel that there were similarities of the thoughts. Firstly, if you see the new education policy and if you look into the fundamental characteristics the fundamental principles of the policy, we find that recognizing, identifying, and fostering the unique capabilities of each student is located. This is a point which I have found that is similar to the Swami Vivekananda's views on education. New education policy focuses on flexibility, no hard separation, multidisciplinary and holistic education, emphasis on conceptual understanding, creativity and critical thinking, ethics and human and constitutional values, promoting multilingualism and the power of language, respect for diversity and the respect for the local context, teachers and faculties as the heart of the learning process. So I was just trying to see how we can see here that the new education policy too has their fundamental principles which are basically based on the teachings of Swami Vivekananda. With that, I come to an end of my lecture. Thank you so much.
Well, that was a wonderful experience, I must say. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
you're welcome.
Now we are moving on to the questions and answer session. Please be free to express your doubts and thoughts.
We can now have an interaction session. I request all the participants who wish to reflect on the lecture or post their queries to post their questions in the chat box so that the resource person can take it up one after the other. I hope, Roshida, you can see the chat box. Please take a look at the questions and please feel free to respond to them. Thank you very much.
I don't see any questions, Vijay.
See, any comments or interactions, any reflections on the lecture is most welcome. And if the participants feel it difficult to post it in the chat box, you can as well unmute and ask your questions directly. But I hope that only one person will unmute the mic at a time, because otherwise it may become a little jarring. So I request the participants to post their questions. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello?
Am I audible?
Yes, audible.
Yeah. I'm Sunita.
Yeah.
From Madras Christian College.
Yes.
I was listening to. I was a little late when I started talking about Vivekananda's education, and I was, at least I think I have heard at least half an hour. I heard your lecture, and if I summarize your lecture, you were talking about how to raise up the downtrodden was the real implementation of Vedanta, especially his philosophical education, history education. He was also a forerunner of Mahatma Gandhi. He wanted to make Indian self-dependent and strong.
Yes, correct.
He wanted to wipe off the inferiority complex from the minds of the Indian people. He also advocated all social reforms in India. Okay?
Yes.
Of course, the 4 types of education he engaged in the problem of
Yeah.
My question to you is, and also you mentioned about the women's education as well as the mass education, education for mass, and also the downtrodden people. My question to you is, don't you think initially he was talking about the introducing Swadharma and and also the Gurukula system. Okay.
Yes. He speaks about that.
And he was emphasizing on Gurukula system. And later you were also mentioning about, of course, I'm also teaching this subject for last 10 years, philosophy education. And you said that women's education and mass education. Don't you think some kind of mismatch in Gurukula system and introducing Gurukula system in education system, secondly, and women's education and mass education, when you look at the Gurukula system, the social parameters were not addressed in the Gurukula system, especially women's education. If I remember correctly, he was talking about, he declared that Indian need a brave woman like Sangamitra, Leela, Ahilabai, Mirabai, and
exactly.
Like that, he was talking about. But unfortunately, they were not only handful of people, Brahmin women, has given education in that particular era. Vedic Gurukula system. Don't you think that when you look at his era, Vivekananda's era and the Vedic era, and also he was been very much influenced by Spencer and John Stuart Mill as well. Philosophy of John Stuart Mill and Spencer's philosophy as well. Don't you think we are trying to some kind of interpretation we are giving to the I don't know whether it's a right interpretation we are giving to the Vivekananda's education. Secondly, second question is, on our last slide, you were connected with the new education policy. I do agree with that. I do agree with that. The education policies for the inclusive as well as I don't know whether it's an inclusive education, but holistic. They are preparing the methodology, the curriculum, and also as you mentioned, the multidisciplinary approach. Through the multidisciplinary approach, through the holistic approach, and also the transdisciplinary. They are also focusing on the transdisciplinary research, isn't it? The new education
Yes,
policy.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, transdisciplinary research. But again, my question, Corey, is when you look at Vivekananda's era, there is not much of digitalized. It's not a digitalized era like 21st century.
No. Now we are into a different digital era. Everything is online.
Okay, online. Of course, now it is an online. But I was talking about his era. His Vivekananda's era. Again, when even in this midst, we are also talking about digital humanities. How to integrate humanities. I'm not even talking about digitalizing humanities, and also interpreting digital to applying human methodologies, humanities methodologies. Again, I wonder, is it again we are putting words into Vivekananda's mouths, saying that it's like we are even today's, and he was also saying the same. Of course, when you were talking about the inclusive education, again, when I remember correctly, if I remember correctly, the qualities of a teacher, when he was mentioned about an attitude of renunciation, ideal behavior, the teacher should love his students, and also qualities of students such as inclination and eagerness to learn, control over senses. These are the main qualities he was mentioning about his philosophy as well. But if you can help me to this connection, for example, these two connections, new education policy and even the inclusive education. We are talking about the inclusive education.
No, what I wanted to show is how, like, new education policy, though it is based on today's digitalized world, like, it's going to be reaching out to students through the digital world. But what I wanted to show is how there is some kind of similarities between the new education policy and his ideology about education, his aims, or his that is what I wanted to show.
Of course, I understood, but you have to substantiate your argument. You didn't substantiate, you only just said that these are this thing. When you are placing some views or your argument, you should substantiate your argument. You haven't substantiated your argument, how you are connecting this to new education policy.
Okay. Now, this particular views that is mentioned in the new education policy could be reached out through various methods, no, ma'am.
Yeah.
It is like you have what I would say is.
Dear Dr. Rushida, this Vedic education, we have method and methodologies.
Yeah, following those methodologies, we could reach out to the students at the different levels. It can be reached out. These particular viewpoints could be reached out to the students.
See, when I look at Vedic education, that is the best method we can used in our curriculum as well. You can look at one fourth from the teacher, 1/4 from the students, 1/4 from the dialogue, and 1/4 from the textbooks. This is the way the methodology has been framed in Vedic system. I'm not talking about Gurukula system. I have a problem with the Gurukula, not including the women and the mass education in the, mentioned in the. I'm critic of that. But on the other hand, the method is very, very vibrant method that is absent in our curriculum and syllabus as well.
But ma'am, if you ask, I'll give you an example of my own institution. We have what is called as blended learning. Yeah. We have what is called as we use different types of methodologies which suits the present needs. So though it is whatever is being mentioned in his ways of imparting knowledge to the students, though it is old, but what we plan to do is like it can be modified through different methods. I mean, this is what I
You okay? I do agree with you. You can take some insights from these philosophies and then modify into have interpretation and modify into the present context. According to the needs of the students, isn't it? I
yeah,
do.
and as per the needs of the students, in our college we have different methods. Like we have like I'll give you one particular example to meet the needs of the students. It's not just teacher student, like where only the teacher is playing a job or only teacher does the teaching. But here in our institution, we have peer teaching. We have blended learning. Uh, uh, we have on
We to have all this thing. We to
yeah. So in this way, the needs of the students are met. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, yeah,
Please, I'm listening to you. Yeah.
yeah. So in this, through this type of different methodologies, we meet the needs of the present day students. Though Gurukula may not be possible in to in the present situation, but yeah.
It's possible, Rishda. Method is possible, but on the other hand, other issues, as you said, when you
Yeah, there are lots of other issues.
yeah.
So
It's possible.
Can I?
Like we are doing. Yeah.
Can I join this discussion? It seems interesting.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Roshida?
Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
am
sir.
Koshi.
Yes, sir.
I'm
Yes,
Koshi
sir.
from Roy University. I mean,
Yes,
I understand Dr. Sunita's point very well and Roshida's thing. Perhaps, Roshida, I think you need to emphasize that in our times, the Gurukula needs to be redefined. It can't be, as Dr. Sunita rightly pointed out, it can't be exclusionary of a particular gender, particular community, etc., as the way it was practiced in the olden times. Perhaps what is closer to this model in our times will be the residential, system of education. Residential. There are universities where they insist that all the students should stay on campus. The faculty also, some of the programs I know. So perhaps whether such a kind of, residential campuses would add a different value to our experiential learning is a point that you need to look into when you reinterpret Vivekananda. See, every thinker is a product of his times, no exception.
Yes, sir. I understand.
Vivekananda or Mahatma Gandhi, we need to reinterpret them. So I think you cannot uncritically accept the notion of Gurukula. You need to redefine it. You need to reinterpret it, suiting our times. Having said that, it's also important to emphasize that with the due respect to Swami Vivekananda's ideal, there is a danger of homogenizing a cultural, over for the whole of India, which I say it is there, overarching, but at the same time, the multiplicity, the plurality of cultures needs to be emphasized. In fact, he mentions that when he talks about the importance of Sanskrit, he also says the mother tongue and other. So in other words, there is a danger these days, particularly, at least in certain segments, to interpret it in a one unitary kind of a culture, which is problematic for our times. I mean, I just wanted to take note of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
May I join the discussion?
Yeah.
I am Gasper, Rashid, I am Gasper from Department of
Yes,
Philosophy, Government College for Women.
Yes, sir.
In line with Dr. Kaushi's intervention, I would also like to say a few words regarding the nature of the true self. Usually we talk about the nature of true self whenever we discuss the philosophy of education with reference to Vivekananda. We say that the ultimate aim of educational attempt is to extract the true nature of a person. And what would be the nuances of this true nature? Whenever we talk about Socratic meiotic method also, we talk about that. The true nature is to be excavated, or the true nature is to be drawn out. Then, what are the cultural nuances of such a true nature? I always dubious about the way that we present. What would be the nature of the true nature? What are the nuances linked to this particular true nature when we talk about the multiple cultural context of Indian scenario. I would like to hear a comment from you, Roshida. Thank you.
Dr. Roshida, are you available? Have you exited the meeting?
Hello, am I audible? Hello?
Yeah, yes, Roshida, you're audible now. Please.
Ari,
Please
I couldn't take the question. I couldn't hear the question. Can you please repeat? Tell the person to repeat the question, please, because I
yeah,
couldn't hear. I mean, there's some connectivity issue
yeah,
here.
yeah, it is understood. Yeah, I have requested him to repeat the question.
Or he
Thank
can
you.
just put it up in the. He can just put it up in the chat box or something.
No, I
Oh,
think he
okay, Roshida. Okay, Roshida. Okay, Roshida.
Yeah, yeah.
It is a simple question only. Whenever we talk about Swami Vivekananda's philosophy of education, we are highlighting that the ultimate aim of education is to extract the true nature of the individual who is the stakeholder of any method of education.
Okay.
Then, in an Indian context, when we talk about the true nature, what are the cultural nuances involved in it? Or in what cultural vestiges that we are presenting this true nature? This is my question. It is not only in relation to Vivekananda. Whenever we talk about the Socratic method also, we said that, well, the true nature of the individual or person is to be extracted out. In relation to meiotic method of Socrates, we know that. So, what are the cultural nuances of this true nature in Indian context? This is my simple question. I hope that I am audible.
Yes, sir. You're audible. I'll just answer your question. Uh,
I mean, just to, sorry for intervening, just to understand Dr. Gasper's question a little more, I mean, in relation to Swami Vivekananda.
yeah.
I was just wondering, Dr. Roshida, whether what is said with regard to Swadharma has any link with this query about the self, the true nature, when he says it has to realize, the true nature in the context of one's own dharma. So is there any such, nuances with regard to one's own duty when one understands one's own real self? If that, then one has to again slightly critical about how this notion of Swadharma is expressed at that time. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Koshi, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Actually, it is a little bit a tricky question.
Yeah, I know. I was just trying to know how to.
Yeah, it is only for discussion, Rashida.
Yeah.
It's only for discussion.
No, it's quite good the way Jasper pointed it out. I mean, these are the critical aspects we need to take into account whenever we interpret thinkers of past.
Yeah.
As Gadamer rightly points out, we need to bring them to our own context. It's mediated by our traditions too. The tradition is not static or something; it's evolving, and And whenever we look into the past, we need to mediate the past into the present. That is how we interpret. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly the nuances that you have pointed out. Hermeneutically, we have to tackle the question, I think. Okay, just leave it. I think others also can join the discussion maybe.
I think let Dr. Roshida respond to these reflections.
Just give me a 1 minute, please.
Please take your time.
Now, as Gasper says, how true self could be the true nature of the self could be being awareness is something which is in and of itself, I would say. The direct experience of being awareness is the experience of one's true nature. That's what Gasper, is it okay what I have answered?
Okay, Roshida. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Do we have any further queries or reflections or comments?
I don't know whether I am answering Gasper's query. I just try to, am I audible?
Yeah,
Okay,
audible.
Okay, Sunita.
I'm trying to think loudly. Okay, please correct me if I'm wrong. Those who are versed with Vivekananda's view of education, as Gasper and Dr. Kaushik Tarikan mentioned, of course, the highest aim of education as laid down by Swami Vivekananda have inevitable markers of his personality and philosophy of life. I think the aim of creating self-confidence, the aim of developing faith, and the aim of keeping in view the practical aspects of life, and the aim of developing a sense of universal brotherhood. These are the main, issues we have to discuss when you're looking at, as he said, contextualizing his, his philosophy. This is what I understand. I can explain, one by one. I don't want to, but you understand what I mean right now.
Yes, you can explain. No issues. You can explain.
Okay. When he says that, when aim of creating a self-confidence, he said that an individual may have many qualities within himself without being conscious of the same. It is a function of education to make him conscious of the same. This is what he said.
Yeah, that initially says the same thing.
Yeah.
He says it. Know thyself. Know thyself.
Yeah. With this consciousness, he may reach any height. I think yes. I remember he have a quote, wake up, start with wake up. I don't remember the quote right now. You start with, wake up and do not stop till your aim of life is achieved. That's what I remember, vaguely I remember. The aim of developing faith, he mentioned that the modern student lacks faith. Without faith, nothing can be acquired.
So there the teacher plays an important role, to regain the faith and confidence in a student.
Again, the question, Gasper's question, again, ask whether culturally, again, whether the cultural aspects, it is for whom you are talking about. Only for few, or when you are talking about the inclusive one, again, it's a problematic one. When you are, I have a problem with all this thing, but on the other hand, what I understand, I am just, talking right now. The aim of keeping in view of practical aspects, like what he mentioned is that, the education is useless which does not enable one to earn his daily living. Education must enable one to earn enough for the upkeep of himself and his family. Again, I don't know whether, it is not directly linked to Gasper's thing. This is the kind of aim of his, Vivekananda's education. Aims of education. Yeah, what is?
But in his aim,
the aim of keeping in view the practical aspects of life. There you can bring all this thing. He was asking about, also mentioning about the practical aspects. So I do, his major influencer John Stuart Mill here. Utilitarian perspective. I don't know. Again, I am the interpretation. All these kind of, as Gasper mentioned, is an interpretation. I am also looking at the Western influence of Vivekananda here. Another one, I think international peace, something he was talking about. Swami Vivekananda wants everyone to be able to contribute to international peace.
Yeah, internationality.
Oh, internationality
and international peace. Yeah.
Again, as I said, though he belongs to India, but education in India as well as in the West, he has been influenced by Western thought and also Indian, he, synthesized these two. But on the other hand, I say the question remains, whether is it possible to, implement in our, cultural context, the more than 50% of the population is below, poverty line, and not able to, even today, they are not able to, attain any kind of even school education, whether this comes to college education or primary education or the higher education sector. If you look at, how can we talk about, how we can, but on the other hand, is it possible to implement this,
But with
we shouldn't forget our cultural context, as Gaspar mentioned, our all problems and nuances of the society as well.
If you see, it's not forgotten. If you try to compare the views of, the new education policy, there is respect for diversity and respect for the local context. If you see that, so
yes,
I don't think it is being ignored.
Madras Christian College, almost 10% of the students were not able to, have 10 minimum. I'm talking about, able to access internet facilities. I'm staying in a metro cosmopolitan city. There, I'm not able to. The students were not able to attend the classes.
Exactly, the same thing is happening everywhere because of
talking about.
See, that could.
Hi all, I just wish to intervene a bit. That is, this is Dr. Vijay from Government College for Women, Thiruvananthapuram. Doctor, I believe Swami Vivekananda had once remarked that education is the panacea for all the problems, the vices that India faced during that time. So actually the kind of metamorphosis that education can bring about in the empirical realm was completely envisioned by him, and he understood the dimensions of it. And so education is not merely spoken of on a spiritual level or on a metaphysical dimension by Swami Vivekananda, but he takes it to the level of ground reality as well. I just like to add that. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed, Dr. Vijay. That point I have mentioned in the presentation, what you had mentioned.
Are there any other questions, or I think it's time for us to wind up. Are there any other questions?
Thank you. And at last but not least, let's invite Dr. L. Vijay, Assistant Professor, Department of Philosophy, Government College for Women, to deliver the vote of thanks. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. It is my great pleasure to deliver our sincere gratitude on behalf of the department and the college to all the participants of this ICPR lecture series. Before I embark upon my duty, I wish to express my real joy on listening to Dr. Roshida. Roshida is a very good friend, and we have had a very long association of over 10 years. We had actually participated in a refresher course together, and I still remember the warmth and joy of the personality of Dr. Roshida. It was so great to have you, Roshida, with us today. Now I shall begin my duty. At the outset, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to the principal of Government College for Women, Dr. Aravind Krishnan K., who has always stood as a pillar of support in all our ventures, always inspiring us and lending any kind of support that we require in organizing lectures, seminars, and other such academic activities. Thank you very much, sir, for presiding over the session. Next, I wish to express the department's deep sense of gratitude to Professor Sushim Dubey, the professor, Nav Nalanda Mahavir Deemed University, who is a very, very vibrant academic presence in the webinars of the country today. And thank you very much, sir, for spending your valuable time with us and sharing your insights with us. Thank you very much, sir. Next, I wish to express from the bottom of my heart the department's deep sense of gratitude to Dr. Roshida Rodrigues, the HOD in charge of DCT Dempes College of Arts and Science, Miramar, Goa. As I have mentioned earlier, Dr. Roshida is also a very good personal friend. It was such a joy to listen to you, Roshida. You made a wonderful attempt, and the presentation was very lucid, clear, and well laid out, well structured. Thanks a lot, Dr. Roshida. Next, I would like to express the department's sincere gratitude to the Indian Council of Philosophical Research, New Delhi, for granting us the lecture series for the year 2021. Next, I wish to express the department's deep sense of gratitude to all the faculties, research scholars, and students from various institutions throughout the country who joined us for this lecture program and made it quite memorable. To name some of them, I wish to express the department's deep joy to Dr. Sunita, Dr. Koshi Tarakan, and a special word of mention to Dr. Abha Singh, the principal of Dempe College, who took time out of a busy schedule to join us today. And I have understood that some of Dr. Roshida's colleagues have also joined. We express our deep sense of gratitude to everyone for joining us in this webinar series. Next, I wish to express my deep sense of gratitude to the HOD of Philosophy, Dr. Nasneen, who is really a pillar of support, who constantly encourages all the faculties of the department. We work as a team together with a good amount of bonding, and I believe that it is the bonding that exists between all the faculties of the department that is basically responsible for taking the department on a line of progress. Thank you, Dr. Nasneen. I also wish to thank the coordinator of this lecture series, Dr. Sandhya, my colleague, and also the other faculty members of the department, Dr. Gasper, who made such valuable interventions with his reflections here today, Dr. Shri Kumar, Dr. Ambali, and Dr. Mangalya for joining and working tirelessly to make this a reality. I also wish to express the department's deep sense of gratitude to all the students of philosophy of Women's College who joined us. There are teachers from other departments, especially the Department of Philosophy, Karyavatam, the head of the department, Dr. Binu, Dr. Balu, Dr. Lakshmi. They have all joined us for this lecture series. We thank them from the bottom of our heart. and also some research scholars and students also from the Department of Philosophy of Kerala University have joined. We thank each and every one of them, and we also thank all our students who joined and made this dream a great reality. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Vijay, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Nazneen, my good friend, for giving me this opportunity to express my views. And once again, it was really good time that I had with you all in way back in 2010, where we had to attend a refresher course in applied philosophy. It was a wonderful experience at the UGC HRDC Kerala University. Thank you once again, Dr. Vijay, for such a, for giving such a wonderful vote of thanks for me. I'm humbled by your words. Thank you, Nazneen, once again. Wish you all a very nice day ahead. God bless.
Thank you so much, Roshida. And I think with this, we come to the end of the first lecture of the 3 lecture series that we have planned, sponsored by the Indian Council of Philosophical Research. Hope to meet all the participants again on Sunday at 3 p.m. Where we have the opportunity to listen to Dr. Sangeeta Menon, a renowned professor of philosophy, who is serving currently at NIAS, Bangalore. So hope that all the participants who were there today will also join us on Sunday at 3 p.m. to listen to Professor Sangeeta Menon. Thank you, one and all.